everyone, and welcome to today's IT Leader Briefing for 2026 on AI and digital process automation. I'm Hannah, Digital Marketing and Events Specialist here at FlowForma, and I'll be your host for today. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a few tips for participating in today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded. For any assistance you might need, you can email info@flowforma.com. Your lines are muted, but we want to make this as interactive as possible. So you can type your questions in the chat box, and you're also able to participate in polls and a survey at the end. So let's meet your hosts. So we have Robbie, our product expert, here with us today. Hi, Robbie.
Hello.
Robbie is committed to supporting organizations on their digitalization journeys. He has 6 years of experience onboarding enterprises to the FlowForma platform. He brings deep expertise in helping companies digitalize processes ranging from simple workflows to complex enterprise-wide operations. We're also joined by Niamh Lorden, Head of Marketing. Hi, Niamh.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Niamh is committed to supporting FlowForma's vision of becoming the easiest to adopt no-code process automation tool on the market. With over 10 years of experience in technology marketing, Niamh drives FlowForma's marketing strategy and empowers its community through innovative, engaging content. So for today's session, it focuses on what IT leaders are prioritizing in 2026, the common challenges they are facing, and how AI and automation is being applied via AI-assisted designs and agents. Robbie will also share a light demonstration with us too. So we know your time is precious, so we hope to get this wrapped up within about 40 minutes. And I'm going to pass you over to Niamh. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Hannah. Okay, so yeah, really important to talk about why we're all here today. So when we're designing this webinar, we really wanted to get some input from the registrations on why you're coming to this session, what are your goals for 2026. So that is why we had a little question in the registration form. So thank you for everyone who did share goals with us. And I guess what we're looking at on screen here is an array of responses from the people who are on this webinar session today. And I guess, Robbie, we weren't surprised when we saw this feedback. You know, we hear this feedback a lot. But there were some kind of top trends. And I guess the number one trend that was coming up in the goals was about improving accuracy and speed. And I guess we see that in nearly every survey we run, but it came through very strong in this survey. So that's definitely something we're going to cover in today's session. And also kind of a more exciting one that's trending the last couple of years. But I know a lot of registrations for today did ask, you know, how can they use AI agents to support staff in everyday work? So that's something we're definitely going to cover off. And Robbie, one of your favorites here. So a lot of people wanting to have better dashboard visibility in 2026. And what was really kind of coming up in the inputs from the registrations was about improving decision making and giving C-level better access to reports. And people want to move away from time wasted on manual report building. So yeah, these are the goals of everyone on the session today. And I guess over the next 40 minutes, we're here to provide you with practical advice to help you overcome these challenges and achieve your goals this year. Okay, so they're the goals that people on the call have. And if we move on to this next slide, I guess, Robbie, what I'm trying to do here is I'm zooming out from what the attendees have said they're interested in. And I guess we're now kind of looking at what IT leaders care about globally. So thank you for everyone giving their inputs so far. And I guess when we're speaking with our community, our prospects, our customers, and dealing with the analysts, I guess these are what's coming up as the top points that IT leaders care about. And I know in FlowForma, the conversations that we're having with IT leaders around AI, like those conversations have evolved a lot over the last 12 months, and most enterprises have kind of moved away from talking about AI in terms of co-pilot, is in terms of pilots and POCs. Most enterprises now are really focused on embedding AI into workflows that are already in production. And they're seeing the impact of adding AI on top of them. And those workflows are really kind of running the organization now, which is great. So that's something that we're going to talk about later in this session. Another top trend that IT leaders are talking about is the rising trend of automation with trust. And I guess what we're talking about there is, governance as a topic is nearly as topical now as AI is. So we're going to cover off a little bit about that today to help you with that challenge. And I guess it's all about scaling automation without increasing risk, right? Um, and then obviously people on the call are interested in AI agents, and we are going to cover that off. And I guess, everyone wants to bring AI agents in on top of their workflows. And I guess the challenge for IT leaders is going to be around creating a control environment for AI, humans, and automation to work together. So we're going to talk about that. And the next point here, Robbie, people didn't submit it in the registration forms, but we hear about it a lot. So it's, IT leaders really caring about platform sprawl and having more unified platforms. And I know we hear about it a lot from the community, but it's really kind of becoming a C-level topic now that C-level wants to have unified platforms. And then I guess at the end of the day, all these goals are coming back to efficiency and speed, and what everyone wants is faster workflows, faster decision making. And at the end of the day, that's all going to give us a measurable value. Um, so I guess that's kind of like the goals that we got from the feedback in our registration form. And then on this slide, I guess it's what leaders globally are caring about. So that kind of sets some nice context for today's webinar. Then if we move on to the next slide, I guess we're all familiar with the challenges that organizations are facing in 2026. And even if you look at the challenges on the left-hand side, which we've just talked about, I think a lot of these stem from fragmented automation. And I guess what we'll get Robbie to cover off, so these are your challenges on the left-hand side. These can be fixed when you have a governed AI automation platform that will give you end-to-end process visibility, give you improved compliance, and give you better data. Yeah, so that's kind of the key topics for today's session. So yeah, let's get started. So let's jump into our next section where Robbie, I guess you will be showing what's really possible and how we can overcome those challenges with a product like FlowForma.
Yeah, thanks, Neve.
Great.
Yeah, okay, so first, just a little bit of an overview of FlowForma. So at its core, FlowForma is a process automation platform built to connect the people involved in work across the organization. So whether that's employees, managers, customers, suppliers, risk and compliance, or even IT and operations. See on the left of the slide here, you have the reality of how automation initiatives tend to start in an organization. Sometimes it's an idea, sometimes it's a process diagram, Word document, sometimes it's literally a call or a workshop. FlowForma takes those inputs. With FlowForma's Copilot, it can turn them into governed execution. In the middle, you've got the platform itself then. So the three core building blocks: forms to capture structured information, workflow to orchestrate the end-to-end process, including approvals and routing, and then insights, so you can see performance bottlenecks and SLAs, key performance metrics. Sitting at the top then is the AI automation layer, where Copilot helps you design processes faster. Agents can then take repeatable tasks and decisions. Assistants can support users during execution. Below is the integration layer then. So these processes can connect to Microsoft 365 services and wider systems such as databases, ERP or GRC systems, essentially anything that has a REST API connection. On the right then is what leadership actually cares about. So you've got governed outcomes, automated processes, operational insight, and document generation, all delivered in a way that's auditable secure, and compliant. So the simple message here is with FlowForma, you can think it through, build it really quickly with Copilot, and then run the process with full visibility and control.
Thanks, Robbie. I think that's a great overview of the platform for people on the call today that aren't as familiar with our product. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and if I zoom in specifically on the AI layer for a moment, it's worth sharing how we approached it internally because it has shaped the way the capabilities have been built in FlowForma. So in recent years, we started experimenting with generative AI. We were enthusiastic to see what its capabilities were. We ran multiple different experiments, trying out different ideas and concepts focused around process automation. Uh, we realized that these experiments were effectively disposable, but by going through this process, we learned about generative AI's strengths and weaknesses. In what areas in our domain it was particularly useful. So I would highly recommend this experiments-driven approach for those of you starting on your AI journey. We focused in on 3 specific areas: how we can use AI to help organizations innovate and accelerate their process automation initiatives, how we use AI to automate recurrent tasks that exist in every process, that's our AI agent capability, and how we use AI to enhance existing process capabilities. So coming up next now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can use FlowForma's Copilot to rapidly innovate as part of your process automation initiative. The idea here is it's really simple. I'm going to go from a blank canvas to a fully built out process in a matter of minutes. You can then refine it to match the controls and your environment. And to keep this really practical, I'm going to use a workflow that almost every organization recognizes, but many still manage through tickets and email threads and spreadsheets. It's the classic question of who has access to what, why do they have it, and can we prove it? So I'm going to use FlowForma's Copilot to generate an ISO 27001 aligned access request and access review process. Then I'll make one small change to show how governance gets enforced automatically in the process. Okay, so I'll open FlowForma's process designer here, and I'll give my process a title. We'll call our process user access request. This is where we build processes end to end in FlowForma. The input of data, the routing and approvals, the rules that drive conditional steps, plus the audit trail for reporting. You can see FlowForma's Copilot here in the Flow Designer. And I'm going to paste in a prompt that describes the process, the stakeholders, and the control requirements we want, specifically aligned to ISO 27001. Okay, so on your screen now, you can see the prompt, and essentially the prompt is just basically build a user access request and access review process with requester, line manager, application owner, and IT fulfillment. Add InfoSec approval only when it's privileged access or sensitive data. Enforce business justification, enforce time-bound privileged access, and include SLA and an audit trail. Also create a quarterly access review task so you can evidence ongoing governance. And you can structure your prompt whatever way you want. And then once you have that, you can take it, copy and paste it as I'm doing now. And you can take it back to FlowForma's Copilot and just paste it in. So when I paste this in now, I'm just going to click generate. And in a few seconds, we'll have the backbone of the process, the data fields, the approval stages, the fulfillment steps, and the review steps. So you can see FlowForma has given me an interpretation there. It's saying you want a controlled ISO 27001 compatible access review request process. And you can see FlowForma's Copilot's working away. It's building me that process, all the steps, questions, and logic that I would expect to see in this process. It's the access request comes through. It's routed through to line manager approval, application owner approval, information security. Right the way through, we have everything that we could possibly need in this process. And what I like here is that it's already structured the way an auditor would expect. So justification is captured at the start, approvals are recorded, and an evidence step then comes through if IT confirms what was provisioned. So looking through the process that FlowForma's Copilot has built, you can see fields like request type, system or application, role, justification, start and end dates and whether that's privileged access then. So, and also on the workflow side, you can see the approvals. It's coming through to line manager, application owner, and then through to IT to fulfill. It's generating a usable process shape that matches how this real world process actually works. Okay, and you can actually go one further with this in Copilot. You can give feedback through natural language commands to add additional steps, take out content as and when you see fit. So I've just clicked build on this process now, and we have our full process built end to end. And at this point now, I'll switch into the traditional designer. So here is the governance bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make one small change that demonstrates how control is enforced automatically. I'll open the step rules and I'll set it so that when privileged access equals yes, we're going to need then an additional InfoSec security approval step. So that's going to be required. So now if someone requests a privileged access, the process doesn't rely on people remembering to loop in security. It is enforced every time and it's provable. So what I'll do now is I'm just looking at the question here, privileged access. So you can see the choice values, whether it's yes or no. So that's our trigger point in our process. That's where I place my rule. If the answer to that question is yes, I have a simple rule action here that we're obviously then going to need an information security approval step. So simple no-code business logic. When privileged or admin access is required and that answer equals yes, what do we want to have happen then in our rule actions? We have all our steps in our process then, so you can see everything here, but we're particularly interested in our information security access control required. So if privileged access equals yes, we want to show that step. I can quickly then just create a test form and show that in action. So we have that trigger point question, privileged or admin access required. When I select yes, you can see we now have that fourth step, information security is required. If I was to change my mind in the form and select no, you can see now that that question is no longer required. And you can take the same approach for other conditions too, such as sensitive data, classifications, external users, and so on. It can be tailored any way you need it to carry out your own process.
Thanks so much for that demo, Robbie. Before we
problem.
go any further, I'd love to get a sense of where everyone is at today. So there's no right or wrong answer here. Just choose the option that best reflects your organization. So I'll pop up the poll now just in a moment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to find out from attendees where they're at with AI in process automation. So we'd love to see where you're at. And Robbie, thanks for that great demo. You know, it just shows the speed of automation now, and that you can turn around working processes, you know, within minutes and have them tested within hours and rolled out. And obviously, you know, we've just shared a blank canvas there today, but obviously, you know, it can be branded to the look and feel of your organization and customized exactly as you need.
Perfect. And I'm just going to end and share the results now.
Thanks, Hannah. Okay, so we have a bit of a mixed bag here today. So 45% are exploring options, 35% piloting AI features, great to see, 15% actively using AI in automation. Yeah, and 0% cautious or waiting. So that is great to see, isn't it, Robbie? So everyone's kind of moving forward with their plans.
Yeah, I think we may be past that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, thanks for that feedback. Okay, so Robbie, this was a challenge that kind of came up in the feedback for 2026 from our registrants. So they do want to find out a little bit more about how to achieve end-to-end process visibility. So if you could share a little bit about how our customers are doing that, that would be great.
Yeah, this is the real value for leadership. So you move from fragmented efforts to measurable control and visibility. As this dashboard view shows here, you can see exactly how long approvals are taken, where requests are getting stuck, and whether SLAs are being breached. You can also see volumes over time, the workload sitting at each team, and the aging of requests that have not yet moved or been actioned. Alongside that, you still have the audit evidence that you need. Who approved what, when they approved it, and what the justification was, and what documentation to prove that was captured, what evidence was attached to fulfillment. So you're not just automating, you are making the process operationally visible and audit ready.
Yeah, and I guess it's pretty easy to achieve this. It's kind of like all out of the box, Robbie, once you plug in FlowForma and have your process
Exactly. Yeah.
digitalized.
You've seen the process that was built by Copilot there. So I've just given it a prompt and it can take that framework and it knows exactly what needs to be captured in the process once you have those data points. And even at that, you can extend on it to natural language commands to actually give it further feedback. Once you have captured those data points and they're in your process, then they can be used to build these dashboards that you need.
Perfect. Okay. Great. And then, yeah, I guess the exciting one that people are here to learn about and want to do more of in 2026, but the possibility of continuing to add AI agents onto your process to drive increased efficiencies, Robbie. Can you share how we're doing that in the FlowForma world?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the broader AI capability set in FlowForma because Copilot, as we've just seen there, it's only one part of the overall AI suite. The next layer is obviously what happens inside the process. This is where AI agents drive efficiency. And the key point is that agents work best when the task is clearly defined and has a clear outcome and is repeatable. In other words, we're not trying to hand an agent an entire end-to-end business process and hope for the best, essentially. We are using it to take on the reoccurring work that exists inside every workflow. So the way you drive that is simple natural language instructions in Copilot. Again, AI agent rule, it's just a no-code business rule. You give it a simple prompt and the outcomes are very tangible. Agents can validate information automatically. They can apply decision logic consistently, and they remove the manual checking and admin that slows everything down. So that's where you start to see time back for your teams, faster throughput and fewer errors. So I suppose the message here is Copilot helps you build the government process quickly, and AI agents help you run that process more efficiently by automating the repeatable tasks that usually consume people's time. Um, Even in the access request example there, an agent could potentially validate that request has been, there's a clear justification, confirm the end date is present for privileged access, for an example, or flag requests that look like exceptions before they ever reach an approver. That's the difference between a workflow that just routes work and a workflow that effectively reduces the workload.
Great. Thanks, Robbie. And I know we've a few use cases that we're going to touch on for AI agents later in the webinar. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for that. Okay, and then the next possibility, yes. So I know this is a really popular one, Robbie, that's come up with registrations today. But what's possible with audit trails? Once your process is digitalized, how can you see who's done what and who's approved what steps and what's been delegated?
Yeah, it's really simple with FlowForma. It's an inherent feature out of the box with FlowForma. There's no configuration at all needed with it. Naturally enough, being a SharePoint application, everything is version control. But within FlowForma, we have our own audit trail feature, and essentially each individual instance of a form, it captures everything from a very granular level as to who the user was, the date and time, right down to the second, in terms of what the rule actions was, what was said, what was captured, right the way through the process. So in terms of highly regulated environments where compliance and auditability are paramount, FlowForma is really it's the gold standard essentially. Everything that's captured in FlowForma is automatically tracked and you have a full audit trail then of everything that's actually happened in every one of your processes.
Super. Yeah, I think that's a great summary there that you can see all the steps, who did what and when they did it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really advantageous to external auditors. So especially if you're subject to external audits, somebody can come in and pick a process from a long time ago and they can see end to end everything that's happened in it. That's one of the really strong points with FlowForma.
Great. Um, okay, and then Robbie, governance is obviously very topical at the moment, and it came up in the registration form, and we have been talking about this for a long time, but it's become even more paramount now with AI agents and with empowering more people in the business to digitalize. And people probably have governance in the back of their mind if they're scaling automation. How can I do this, without too much risk? So can you share a bit about our governance hub?
Yeah, absolutely. So FlowForma has its own centralized governance application that sits centrally on the tenant. So your product owner, whether that's your IT team or an administrative team that are essentially in charge of oversight with FlowForma, you have full oversight when it comes to everything that's happening in the tenant. So the governance application will give you full visibility for all your environments, all your processes, right down to user licensing. So essentially what you can do is you can give your user base sandbox environments where they can develop out solutions for the organization. They can then request promotions then to a UAT environment where product owners, administrative teams, or even IT resources can come in and put the final checks and balances on those processes. And then once that they see fit, they can and have control and governance over what gets promoted to live environments in the organization. And again, that's all audit tracked. The approvals come in, everything is date and time stamped approval. Only the right people have access to the right things at the right time. So essentially, FlowForm has a dedicated governance app that gives you centralized visibility over everything that goes on in the organization when it comes to process automation.
Great. Okay. I'm sure that's a big tick box for IT leaders on the call. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, and Robbie reporting. So that was, I think, our third biggest trend from people joining today. How can they give their leaders and C-level quick access to the KPIs and SLAs they want to see?
Well, absolutely. Like as we've just seen in the product demonstration there, I use Copilot to develop out that access request process. So naturally enough, when you're building all your processes in FlowForm and those unique data points, they're going to capture a lot of information and data as part of your processes. But with FlowForm, it allows you to actually convert that information and data into meaningful key performance metrics. With our insights module, every piece of data that you capture as part of your process can be fed through. You can build dynamic dashboards. That could be a macro view of the entire organization for SLT to actually see what's going on in the organization in terms of governance, finance, state of play, and absolutely everything. And that can be compartmentalized in terms of security, content control, and access. So only the right people can actually see those dashboards. On a very granular level, then you can actually build out the dashboards departmentally. So an example of that would be your finance department. Only the right people have access to the finance metrics to do with the organization. Health and safety. You could also have a specific dashboard that's specific to that team. And those users then don't have access to SLT confidential information about the organization. So every granular piece of information that FlowForma captures, it empowers you to build dashboards where you have up to the minute insights. And I think it's key to mention that every time a step or a piece of information is captured in FlowForma, these dashboards update in real time. So essentially you could have multiple processes right across the organization that are business critical, and you could have a live dashboard in your boardroom, and every time a step is submitted in a FlowForma process, you have up to the second real-time data that's giving you clear insights into your organization so leadership can make informed and up-to-the-minute decisions.
Great. And I guess the benefit as well, Robbie, is if you're not in the IT team and if you don't have BI skills, the heads of departments, heads of processes can build these out themselves without any coding or skills.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all 100% no code, and because it's based off SharePoint with our architecture as well. The Active Directory, or Entra ID as it's called now, again, the user base sensitive data is already compartmentalized based on SharePoint access and the user's ID. So if a person tried to access a dashboard that they didn't have access to, they won't get to see it. So it's all very simple.
Great. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful to people on the call today. Okay, and then I know, Robbie, everyone loves to hear real world use cases, and I think we have just three quick examples of kind of trending use cases for plugging in agents on top of your workflows. So I think the first example we'd like you to share is the claims agent
Yeah.
for insurance, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So this first use case is the claims agent, and the goal is to take kind of unstructured, inconsistent claim notifications and submissions and turn them into a standardized, validated case that your team can act on quickly. So you can see on the left here, the inputs are what you'd expect in insured claims forms, broker notifications, and policy documents. The agent extracts key details, maps them into a consistent structure in a flow format process, and then augments the claim with the right policy context based on things like the policy number, for example.
Okay.
From there, it validates the claim, flags gaps or anomalies, and it supports the handler with an assessor view and risk analysis. The output is a clean claim data, that standardized policy data, a validated claim, and ultimately a recommendation that speeds up triage and reduces manual time that your team would essentially be putting in to go through these documents manually. So it really streamlines and standardizes the process.
Brilliant. I guess it helps with compliance, it reduces errors, and it helps make everyone more efficient. Great.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what we all want. Okay. And then I think if we move on to use case number 2, and this use case actually came up quite a bit in the registration form, which I was surprised by, but it seems like a lot of people are challenged with managing tender submissions. So Robbie, you might share a little bit about how we can address this better and more efficiently with AI now.
Yeah, because this process it can be quite big across an organization, multi-departmental. Lots of departments have parts to contribute across a tender response, and it's a great example of where AI workflow, where AI and workflow need to work together. On the left, you have the tender backpack, essentially, that would be the tender that you're responding to, supporting documents, and your reference material. FlowForma can ingest that content into a controlled knowledge base, extract the key requirements and questions, and then route the work to the right departments. Commercials for costing, for example, HSE for safety responses, technical for methodology, and so on. AI agents can then help them generate first draft section responses based on tender requirements and your approved reference content. And the process pulls it all back together for review. So there will be a QA section, final sign-offs, and importantly, FlowForma can then generate the final tender response document in the required format. So you move from tender pack to submission with far less manual effort and far more consistency. So it makes you really agile in terms of being able to respond to those tenders really quickly with standardized uniformity. So I'm sure if there are people on the call today that handle tender responses, it can be quite a long, laborious process, multi-departmental coordination. FlowForma standardize all of that, and not only that, reduces the administrative overhead and actually using AI to generate content that can then be validated through QA processes and then ultimately produces the tender response.
Brilliant. I think that's really helpful for people on the call. Great. Okay. And then I think we move on to our third use case. I don't think this came up in the feedback, Robbie, but we said we'd pop it in because obviously we have IT leaders on the call, people in security teams, and obviously it is a trending use case across the globe right now that, organizations are onboarding more software vendors than ever before. And the management of that is difficult. So can you share a little bit about how our new product Flow Assure can streamline that process?
Yeah, so vendor risk assessment using Flow Assure. So essentially, I think you've nicely summed up the challenge there. The challenge is the same everywhere. So vendor assessments are slow, they're inconsistent, and they drain security teams across organizations. What Flow Assure does is it gives you a governed workflow where your security analysts initiate the assessment. The vendors securely submit the evidence, questionnaires, pen test reports, certifications, whatever is required for any particular use case. The AI agent rules then can review and classify what has been submitted. They can flag anomalies or gaps in the submissions. They can even fast track low risk vendors. What your team gets back then is a structured summary, clear recommendations, and the next actions to take. So analysts spend time on real risk decisions rather than admin and document chasing. So the key thing there is that it's doing a lot of the manual lifting of what would typically be on your teams, and it's identifying gaps. So it's not even coming onto your team's desk to waste their time to say, well, there's a gap in this. Essentially, your AI agent rules are looking at all the supporting evidence and documentation that's been submitted and giving an assessment and essentially cutting out a lot of administrative time for your teams to actually then make an informed decision.
That's great. Thanks, Robbie.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's the three use cases for plugging AI agents in, but obviously they can be added into nearly any process. Um, and they're just some examples of how our customers have added AI onto their processes. I guess across all of our customer base, our product has been used to digitalize an A to Z of process, from health and safety in hospitals to contract management in public sector bodies, to student onboarding in educational institutions. That'll just give you a flavour of processes digitalised on the platform. Okay. And I know we're soon coming up to the end of our webinar, but before we move into Q&A, I thought it'd be good just to leave some tips, Robbie, for people on the call today. And one of my favorite tips I think I've picked up along the way was from Forrester, and it was a great tip around, don't automate for the sake of automating, or don't add on AI just for the sake of using new technology. So, we want to encourage everyone on the call to automate for business outcomes. So think about the outcome that you want to achieve, whether it's that tender management team that are in the office until 10 o'clock every night the week before a tender is due, and the outcome that you can realize from using smart AI on top of that. So definitely think about the outcomes, think about those core processes with the strong foundations that you can layer AI on top of quite quickly. And then I guess, embrace the change. And it is going to be like a cultural fit, but I think there's huge appetite for employees to utilize AI on top of their core processes to make themselves more efficient, more compliant, and get working on more value-added tasks. And I guess, Robbie, what we see all the time is, um, apply the methodology of test, roll out the process to a pilot group, learn from it, improve, and you'll scale quite quickly from there.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I think they're the kind of proven methodologies that our customers have used to achieve success. So hopefully those tips are helpful for our audience today. And I think what we're going to do now is jump into another poll. So I think Hannah's probably going to launch the poll for us. So thank you for joining us today. And, if we can help you with a next step to assist you in, I guess, trying to figure out what processes are best for layering AI on top of, or to help you on your automation journey. If you are interested in a one-to-one consultation with Robbie or another one of our consultants here, or if you're interested in a trial, so we have a 7-day trial. We also have a demo opportunity for everyone on the call today as well. So just let us know if you want one of those next steps. Okay. And then, Robbie, you shared earlier the FlowForma Copilot, and you went into lots of detail. I do want to just plug our playground, which is a very tangible way of people on the call getting a really good experience of how fast you can automate with the FlowForma AI. So at any time, feel free to pop onto flowforma.com. On our homepage in the top hero banner, you will see our FlowForma Copilot there. So at this point, you could pop in a prompt there, or you could upload a picture of a process, a PDF of a process, a diagram. You could pop it in there and then just see how quickly our AI can turn that into an automated prototype for you. So it's very speedy, so I recommend you try that out.
Thanks so much, Niamh and Robbie, for that. So we're going to have our live Q&A. I can see that we have a couple of questions already in throughout the webinar, but if you haven't got a chance, you can pop your questions in just the questions box. I know we are running low on time now, so if we don't get to your questions now, we will follow up with you. So let's see what we have. So the first one is, what types of systems can FlowForma process automation integrate with? Eve, are you okay to take that one?
Yeah, it's funny how this always comes up on webinars. But yes, I guess we've built FlowForma so that it can integrate with any of your core business systems. So we've hundreds out of the box integrations, and then also we have our no-code web API, so you can basically integrate with any other system.
And on our next question, we have a lot of responses saying that they love the agents. So how much training do these agents need? Maybe more for Robbie, that one?
Yeah, FlowForma agents, they don't need training. What they need is clear instructions. So you just need to be explicit about what you want the agent to do, what the expected outcome is, and how it should handle any unexpected scenarios. You may need to tweak those instructions and test them with a few different examples to make sure the agent is delivering the results you expect, but there's no training involved.
And then we also have, what types of documents or diagrams can FlowForma Copilot understand? I think Neve mentioned this just on the previous slide. So if you want to take that one, Neve.
Yeah, great. So yes, you can feed in PDFs, PNGs. So if you have your processes already documented, or you've been brainstorming them, or if you even have pictures of like a workshop in which you've been mapping out your process, you can pop them in and see Copilot transform them very quickly.
Thanks. And we are just nearly over time now. So we just have the last couple of questions. So how do you track what the AI agent has done or suggested for audit purposes? Robbie, maybe you could take that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, it's a really important question. You do need visibility into their actions and the quality of the outputs they produce. And I suppose in many ways, this is music to our ears because we strongly believe the best place for agents is within your existing processes, or at least within a structured process environment. And when agents sit within those processes, they effectively work like an assistant would. They're subject to the same measurements, and you can clearly see inputs they received, the outputs they produced, and how they actually performed. So all that information flows into your insights dashboard, allowing you to monitor what they're doing, how well they're performing, and how much work they're actually handling.
And then we have two more questions, and then the rest we'll have to get back to, unfortunately. So we have one here. To what extent can we customize our processes in FlowForma to match our existing ways of working?
Yeah, I'll take that, Hannah, and I love that question. And we get a lot of feedback on that. And I might just use a customer example. So one of our customers, Hegarty Construction, when they went to market and they were looking for a tool to digitalize their processes, they didn't want to have to adjust their processes too much to fit a software system. And they found that FlowForma was the only one on the market that they could like completely mirror their process in the digital world. So yeah, it's completely customizable and flexible to work the processes the way you want them to work. So you don't really need to adjust them to fit into our system.
And then the last question that we're going to take today is this one. So where is our business data stored when we use FlowForma?
Yeah. Because FlowForma runs natively within your own Microsoft 365, all business data stays within your own tenant and is governed by your own existing Microsoft security, compliance, and data residency controls. Your data stays exactly where it is today inside your Microsoft 365 environment. The FlowForma simply orchestrating the process around that.
Thanks so much, Robbie and Neve. And just for the rest, for all of our listeners, you can avail of your next steps via the survey post-webinar. You can schedule a complimentary demo tailored to your processes, or you are also able to head to the FlowForma Playground on our homepage and you can try it out for yourself straight away. Thanks so much again for joining us, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. I'm sure Neve and Robbie will be happy to help, and the rest of our team. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, everyone. Best of luck
Yeah,
this year.
thanks, everyone.